All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Ryan Warner. I am a consulting psychologist and the advocacy domain lead for Division 13. And I'm excited to have a special guest with me today, Rachel Boehm. Rachel, we were able to meet recently at the SCP conference. It
Yeah.
seemed like you had a great time there. I had a great time as well. So shout out to everyone who was able to make that conference in person in Charleston, South Carolina. And during our brief conversation, we just talked about some issues that are impacting Division 13 members and also just individuals as a whole.
Everywhere.
Right? There's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of political divisiveness, there's a lot of psychosocial challenges just within society right now, right? And so our job as the advocacy domain is to advocate on behalf of members and serve as the voice of SCP. So when there's pressing challenges that impact our members, we always try to bring them to light, provide some education and knowledge so that our members can thrive both personally and professionally. So today we're going to talk about burnout. And I know that you're an expert in this particular topic. So it'd be great to first start by learning more about you and your background and yeah, what made you first interested in speaking and also consulting on this particular issue?
Well, I burnt out spectacularly in my first career, in my early 20s. We know that that folks were researching burnout at the time, but I certainly had never heard of the term, and it wasn't as commonly discussed as it is now. So the people that I turned to for help either said, suck it up. Like essentially, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen, and made me feel like it was due to my incompetence that this was happening. Um, the folks that I turned to treated the symptoms rather than understanding what was going on, and addressing root causes. And so when I look back now, I just wonder how much time, money, and energy could I have saved had someone said, "Oh, it's this. Let's reframe this." And it's not because of a failing on your part. You don't have to leave a whole industry to recover. Or if it gets bad enough, right? Sometimes with burnout you do, but you can take care of the baggage so you don't bring it into your next career and your next career and your next career. And so when I first learned that it wasn't just me that had experienced, workplace sucking and killing us, right? The and that was very freeing and very helpful. But then expanding it further out, when I learned that people could practice this, like there were actually people in the workplace doing the work to make that not happen. And then realizing there was this whole discipline that studied it, it was like, oh God, where has this been all my life? And so I jumped in as quickly as I could to marry my education and my professional work to that experience, right? So many things, I think you talked about this too, start with like the me search, but I wanted to be able to round it out so that I could be part of that mission. And so my company's mission, my personal mission is to be the resource for people that I didn't have so that maybe they can save that time, money, and energy by
Yes.
identifying the root causes.
Yes. It's interesting as professionals, whether we are entrepreneurs, serve as maybe external consultants or internal consultants, 70% of the workforce right now is burnt out, according to a recent survey by
Yeah.
APA, right? And we often go into workplaces and support leaders, right, and help them not have that burnout to impact the work that they do and the teams that they lead, but also within our work ourselves, right? We may be overwhelmed at times and it can be challenging, to be able to support someone else, but also, not prioritize our needs as well. So I'm curious, just as a consultant and, and being a part of this division, what have you seen other consultants may struggle with in this particular field that we work in?
I think the few kind of bullet points there are one, we're all human.
Yeah.
And so just that in and of itself is a risk factor, if you will. We're also, if we're doing this work, we're empathetic, we're giving, we're, potentially like the receiver of the was going to say crap, and I will just say crap, of, you know, the dumping ground for kind of what other people are going through, depending on the way we practice. So it's so important to understand our own stress triggers, our own baggage, our, you know, all of these things so that we have, you know, I call it an owner's manual with my private coaching clients. Like, let's create an owner's manual for you,
Hmm.
right? What do you need to do to be in the best position to go into that world, whatever that world looks like for you? And we have to do that for ourselves, which I think why, as we all know, like the best coaches and the best consultants have their own coaches and consultants to help give them that objective lens, hold them accountable, step out of the comfort zone, remind us to do the work, you know, to practice what we preach, because otherwise it's very easy to let some of that slip away, you know, because again, we're all human.
Yes. I'm curious in your work, what have you seen employers may get wrong when it comes to promoting the well-being of their team members, right? We know that that's important, right? We know that employee well-being is going to enhance productivity, engagement, et cetera. But a lot of organizations, in my experience, I've seen, may take superficial measures to
Yeah.
accomplishing this goal, or there may be additional barriers that may be in place systemically when it comes to
Yeah.
boosting employee well-being. So, what have you seen in your experience?
Just that, I mean, I like the new term, the new label for the old thing is wellness washing or well-being washing, which is that superficial approach. You know, I've had people say, like, I don't need a reminder to stretch. I don't need desk side exercises. Like, don't tell me to eat more carrots. Like fix the printer and let me do my job,
Mm,
right? Like, there's just people feel so um depleted for time
mm,
that continuing to tell people to be healthy and invest in themselves. I mean, I think every human wants to, like, every worker wants to be healthy and feel good. Like, that's, you know, they may be somewhere in the contemplation stages of certain ways to do that, but every person wants to show up and do their best work and feel their best. That's
mm.
what I believe. But we have to create that space for them to do that. And that's, I think, one of the biggest issues that leaders get wrong is focusing on more traditional employee wellness programs that are only individually focused rather than looking at that systemic change that is needed to create that space. An analogy that I've kind of co-opted from Dr. Maslach's work is, you know, the canary can only be so resilient. You have to make the mine less toxic or you'll run out of canaries.
Mm.
Kind of my spin on her analogy there. But we talk a lot about employee resilience, and employee well-being in a way that makes it a nice to have rather than a tool for excellence.
Mm.
And if we can change it to where leaders buy into and truly believe that this is a tool for them to achieve their own metrics, then it won't be so superficial.
Yes. And it's interesting when we think about employee well-being, in my experience, oftentimes it's directed more towards junior level employees.
Yeah.
However, when I do executive coaching with top level CEOs and leaders of Fortune 500 companies and government entities, after we maybe conduct a 360 assessment, or we talk about some ways to boost team dynamics, what I found is a lot of the leaders themselves are stressed out, burned out, right? And then the
Yeah.
conversation goes to, I've been working so much, I haven't even spent time with my children, right?
Yeah.
That's causing additional anxiety and mood challenges at home, right? And so I've seen it go there so many times about the well-being piece when it comes to very senior level leaders as well. I'm curious, like, how can we reframe well-being to it is important for everyone, right, of all levels, not just certain individuals with certain roles. I'm curious if you've seen that, if you have any ideas on how to, reduce the stigma there.
Yeah, it's a hard one, to be honest, because I think part of it is where the word wellness has gone in terms of its kind of colloquial definition. I really stopped using that. Um, Even though that's technically the space where I originated, was like the quote health and wellness space.
Mm,
But I just, again, like I don't use that word. I use well-being, which, you know, it may seem semantics, but really has a different and more comprehensive definition.
Mhm.
Um, I think at the end of the day, it's really understanding what the barriers are for that leader, right? Because if do they want to, but don't know how or afraid to, right? Afraid to take the action, afraid to make the time. They have to, all those things have to be in place.
Mm.
Like I like to break it down, right? Do you not want to or do you want to? Do you know how or not know how? Are you afraid to? Because if those are not in line, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Um, so I think kind of reframing the conversation so that we move what we're talking about here, which is just like personal excellence, personal well-being as a tool to live your best life, to have a fulfilling career, not just a wellness initiative.
Yes.
And then making sure that they are ready, willing, and able to take action and clarify what those action steps should be.
Mhm. Definitely. Yeah, I like that practical, action-focused approach. So as we end today, what are maybe a few strategies that you can give our Division 13 members when it comes to reducing their probability of burnout and enhancing their overall well-being? Any advice
Yeah.
that you would give our members?
The the closing takeaway that I always say is, if nothing else, just get in the habit of asking yourself, what am I feeling and why? Right? Like at every transition point throughout the day, whenever you start to feel some sort of resistance or negative mood, what am I feeling and why? And that will kick off, especially with, among psychologists, right? That'll kick off that search for the root cause. So you don't end up like the 10 a.m. email, you don't end up taking it out on the Uber Eats driver who was like 5 minutes late with your order, right? So just what am I feeling and why?
Great. Well, thanks so much, Rachel. This has been a
Yeah, that's fun.
pleasure, and I look forward to future conversations.
Likewise, thank you.
That is Ryan Warner signing off for today, and I look forward to continuing to engage with all of our members in future meetings. Please be on the lookout for upcoming town halls and various events that we have. Thank you.